everyone, Niklsun here, and welcome to Coming Soon Movie News with Niklsun. I'm your host, and on this show, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we'll be going over all of the day's movie news, as well as going over what it means for the production in general, such as casting decisions, trailer announcements, director announcements, things like that. So, without any further ado, let's get started with today's Hot Topics. So as you all are aware, the last couple of days have been rather important in terms of movie news. So with Wednesday's announcement of the entire DC lineup until 2020, one of the striking titles that came out on that list was Suicide Squad, mainly due to the fact that it was coming out so soon. It's going to directly follow Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice to be the second out-the-gate DC movie in this new cinematic universe they're creating. Well, one of the things that came out with the report was that David Ayer and Warner Brothers are going after A-list talent to get for the roles, essentially. I mean, like, they're not just going after anybody who wants to be in the film or lower tier, or not lower tiered, but maybe less known actors. They're going after hard A-listers. Now, when the report first came out, it was like, of course they're going after those people. They're pretty much the most known people in the world who have not yet done a comic book movie, or at least who have done a comic book movie. Their face has been obscured, or whatever the case may be. Well, there's a lot more credence going on to this right now because Deadline is reporting that a couple of these people are actually close to signing on. Now, what that means is that there are people out there talking to them, and they're saying, you know what, this might be kind of cool, or whatever they're saying, but it's not as though they are literally in the room with the contract in front of them just saying, so what exactly is everything before I sign here? That's not what's going on. They have reached out to these people. They have heard back saying there is interest. But the thing that is striking most about this is with two of the people who were involved in these. Now, I'll get into the names here in just a second, but I mean, it's just, to me, it's crazy to think that some of these people who I'm going to talk about next are actually going to be involved in not only just a superhero film, but this film in particular. This is really getting me intrigued about this movie. And so let's get on with it here. The names that they have come out with are Ryan Gosling, Will Smith, Margot Robbie, and Tom Hardy. Now, the first one that stands out over everything, to me at least, is Tom Hardy, because Tom Hardy was Bane in The Dark Knight Rises. The difference being, Tom Hardy was, for the most part, obscured because of the face mask. His voice obviously was changed. Therefore, with the exception of the name, there aren't going to be a lot of people, I think, out there who are going to have a problem seeing him playing a different character. Even though we know that if this was to happen, if he was to sign on, this would cement the fact that there are still a lot of people out there who think that Ben Affleck's Batman is going to be a continuation of sorts of the Christian Bale Batman. And that is not true. They've already come out and stated that before, but people will still try to hold on to the hope of that. If this happens, that'll put the final nail in the coffin, because you have the guy playing Bane now playing another villain / hero, because they are going to try to turn these guys into heroes of sorts, more like anti-heroes than anything. But him signing on, or coming close to signing on, I think would be really intriguing. The other big name to me that's surprising is Will Smith. I mean, I think that's the first one that stands out to everybody when you think of this. Will Smith is, especially in the last couple of years, has been notorious for being very choosy and picky with the projects that he's a part of, which is funny because his star has started to fade. Well, I don't even think it started to fade. I think it's been fading for a while, but people still resonate to that name, Will Smith. Now, there are a couple of caveats with Will Smith, at least in the last couple of years, that have happened. Most notoriously was with Django Unchained, so these are kind of the three top things, at least that I would think, that will come out of this. And I've heard this on a couple of other shows, so that's just why I'm bringing it to your guys' attention. He only picks lead roles, not ensemble roles. Now, this could change with the fact that the last couple of movies that he's been in haven't done very well. The response to the trailer for Focus wasn't as big, I think, as what he wanted it to be. He was just in, it wasn't Winter's Bone, Winter's Tale. He was part of that movie, but he wasn't a bigger role. So that, to me, is one of the reasons why he might be thinking of stretching into this. The second reason why it's not likely for him to sign on is that his son won't be allowed to be in the film. They won't allow it. And that, to me, at least from what I've seen from the past couple of projects he's been involved in, because that's what killed Men in Black 4, was that he wanted his son to be in the film, and they said no. What was one of the other projects that he was circling and he turned it down? Brilliance was another one that he turned down. I don't think that his son had anything to do with that one, but still, I mean, he's always come out and stated that this is his family business, just like how other people will have like a mechanic shop. A father will have a mechanic shop and he'll want to hand it down to his son. That's what he feels that his family is with the movie business. So he's trying to get his son involved in these projects. I can understand that, absolutely. Stop shoving him down our throats. And I think that he has kind of gotten that message. But this was brought up on AMC Movie Talk, and this is why I really do have to talk about this. Jada, who's his wife, is one of the main villains in Gotham. And say what you will about her performance in that show, you can tell she's having a whole hell of a lot of fun. She is really enjoying her time on that show. She is chewing the scenery as though she had never eaten in a year. I mean, if she comes home and says, listen, this is such a fun atmosphere to be in, you would be playing a villain, because if he signs on, he would be one of the main characters. He would be one of the three main leads. Because Will Smith is not going to take a secondary role. He will be one of the main ensemble group if he was to sign on. But if Jada's coming to him and saying, listen, this is so much fun, there's a lot of juicy material here for you to really dig into. This could also be a role that a lot of people would not expect him to go into. It would be challenging for him, I think. There's a lot of possibilities, which means that this could potentially be true. But Deadline is reporting that both Tom Hardy and Will Smith are very interested in this project, and they are circling the role, which means that they've not only heard back saying that there's interest, there's actually indications that the lawyers may be getting called soon to say, listen, start a deal, because this is something that I really want to attach myself to. Start a deal. We could be seeing that in the next couple of weeks, or maybe even the next couple of months. The movie comes out in August of 2016, so we still got a lot of time. One of the other big names that is kind of striking a little bit is Ryan Gosling, because Ryan Gosling has never really been franchise material. And that's not because he's not a good actor. It's because he has shied away from that. He doesn't want to be a part, or at least up until now, he hasn't wanted to be a part of that. He really does like his independent roles. He likes those roles that are challenging, that the movie will focus on that character instead of that character's problems being a side note to the main overall story. I mean, just look at Half Nelson. I have to keep going back to that movie, Half Nelson. That is such a riveting movie. If you haven't seen it, it is a slow burn. I will give it that. It's not a pulse-pounding movie, but oh my God, is it deep? Is it moving and enthralling? It's just a powerhouse performance. There's a reason he was nominated for Best Actor for that movie. So if you haven't checked it out, definitely check out that film. As well, I mean, as movies like Drive. A lot of people like to say that Drive is overrated, and I can see why they would say that. But when you look at his performance, the levels and depth of his character, when you barely even heard him talk, I mean, that just shows the prowess of his acting ability. I mean, I don't really think that there's anybody out there who can say that he's not a phenomenal actor. The problem that I have is his voice. I don't think, because the rumor is right now that he is being asked about in terms of Deadpool, or not Deadpool, Deadshot. Deadshot is going to be the de facto leader of this group, and that's the character that Ryan Gosling is been linked to. I can't see him being Deadshot. I can't hear his voice. He's going to be very similar to Deadpool, where at least for the majority of the movie, if they stick with the canonized version of the character, he's going to have a mask of sorts with his lock eye. They could, however, go the route that they did with Arrow, where he just has that eye and a strap going around, but it's his face. They could do that. But again, it's the voice. And the voice is what gets me. But he is now currently linked, and this is just rumor and conjecture. Again, a lot of stuff that's coming out right now is rumor and conjecture, and I'm really starting to get ticked off by it. But he is rumored to be lining up 3 potential roles. Now, it would be one of these 3 that he would finalize with. He wouldn't be doing all of these. But one of them is Deadshot in Suicide Squad. Another one is Doctor Strange, which I tweeted out about a couple of days ago, maybe a week ago, saying, Marvel is in talks with insert name here for the role of Doctor Strange. They'll actually announce after the movie comes out, because this is just getting ridiculous. But he is lining up, or at least he's intrigued by Doctor Strange. But the other one, and I think this is the most likely that he would attach himself to, is Houdini. The new Houdini movie that they're making, where they're making him into they called it America's First Superhero. And they're taking the Sherlock Holmes approach, where they're going to take this character known for his mythology, but not as an action hero, and turning him into an action hero in an action adventure type film. So I think that out of all the roles, I think he is most suited for the Harry Houdini role. I just think he has that look, the body stature, everything like that. And his acting abilities are just they're off the chart. He is just a phenomenal actor, so he could definitely handle that. But I do think that Houdini is the best fit for him. Margot Robbie, on the other hand, is an actress who I'm very intrigued by. I thought she nailed it in The Wolf of Wall Street. From what I've seen from her recently, I mean, the trailer for Focus didn't win me over. It just, to me, it didn't have a tone. It went kind of all over the place in terms of, was it going to be a comedy? Is it going to be a drama? Is it going to be a thriller? I can't tell from the trailer. I don't understand what type of movie they're trying to give me. But she's also signed on and has already, I think they're already finished shooting David Yates' new version of Tarzan, where she's playing Jane. So when David Yates chose that project, that was going to be his first movie that he did after the Harry Potter franchise, it looked as though, okay, he's going to go after the best people that he can, and he handpicked Margot Robbie. So that to me shows that, okay, this girl's not just a one-and-done actress. She isn't just amazing in that role and is going to be garbage in the other things. Now, granted, we haven't seen anything from that movie yet, and from what I've seen from Focus, she looks like she can handle her own, but I haven't been wowed by it yet. So, but it looks as though that she's also really considering the role. Outside of that, there's no confirmed information. There's nothing hardcore about Ryan Gosling yet in terms of his approach to Suicide Squad, or whether or not he'd be down for that one as opposed to Houdini or as opposed to Doctor Strange. There's no confirmation on that yet. But out of all of them, I do think that I think that Tom Hardy is the most likely to sign on. Will Smith, on the other hand, he's got a couple of things going for him right now with a type of career change and things like this, but only time will tell. We're not going to hear about anything on this for at least another couple of weeks at the very earliest. But if we do, I will definitely update you guys on here. Here we have our first trailer debut for Ron Howard's upcoming film In the Heart of the Sea, which tells the true story tale of the Essex, the whaling ship, the Essex, and its attack by a whale. This is the story that inspired Moby Dick. This is an actual story. This really happened. Now, one thing I got to say, for a while, it looked as though Ron Howard had kind of lost his touch. Now, Ron Howard, to me, is one of the all-time greatest directors working in Hollywood because he has directed such films as Apollo 13, A Beautiful Mind, Cinderella Man. Apollo 13 still is on my top 5 list of all time. That movie, to me, is one of the most flawless films that has ever been directed, ever been acted in. It is just absolutely, to me, it's one of the most perfect films because it has the beginning, it has the first act, which is all the setup leading up to the launch, and then it has the entire launch, or the entire escapade in space to the point where they start to figure out how to get home, and then the third act is when they finally do come home. Spoiler alert for those of you who haven't read history. But ever since, I think Da Vinci Code, because yeah, he did Da Vinci Code after he did Cinderella Man. I think Cinderella Man, for a long time, was the last really good movie that he did, because he started coming out with movies that just weren't, there was nothing really to sneeze at with them. I mean, they weren't really that impressive. They just kind of looked like run-of-the-mill. And even though I've said in the past that I really do like the Da Vinci Code movies, both Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons, I am looking forward to, not Lost Symbol. Anyway, the next one, I just talked about it the other day on one of my shows. But when he did Rush, that movie to me changed everything. I did think that Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons were a little pedestrian. I think that's the best way to put it. I mean, it just looked like he was just there doing the movie. He wanted to work with Tom Hanks again, and they just found this project. It just looked very pedestrian. They didn't really care about being there all that much. I'm sure that wasn't the case. It's just that's how it came across. Well, when he came out with Rush, that was basically him going back to saying, okay, now I'm back. Because he always seems to be at home in the true story, the biopics, the inspired by stories, the ones that really do have a hard-hitting message that are based on real people, where he can actually get tangibly involved with that story. And he looks to continue that again with In the Heart of the Sea. This trailer, to me, just the cinematography, the color palette that they have, it's really striking. It makes you very nervous almost. And then you get the musical score playing over top of it. And that's just haunting. And then all the imagery that we're given with the whale attacks, and you could see them hunting the whales and cheering together and being kind of, all the camaraderie between the men on the ship. And then you see what happens after the whale attack happens, because the trailer is non-linear. They do show you sequences after the whale attack hits, because as far as I understand, the second half, or the majority of the second half of the movie, will take place on these 3 lifeboats after the whale attack, and they are going to be hunted, or at least that's what I assume, they're going to be hunted of sorts by this whale, but it's more so going to be about the mental toll that being on these lifeboats with such few materials, such few food and drinking water, supplies, stuff like that, and the mental anguish of dealing with all these people, like playing the blame game, saying it's your fault this happened, you caused this person to die, I'm gonna kill you, that's my food, I want it. It's gonna be all of that. It's gonna be this great character study. I can definitely feel it. If you guys haven't watched the trailer though, you can click the link in the description below, because I do have the link to the trailer in there. But I mean, my God, does this movie look like it's just going to be a powerhouse. It comes out in the middle of March 15th, 2015. So we still got a little bit of time for this movie to come out. But, I mean, especially with this cast, you have Chris Hemsworth, you have Cillian Murphy, Benjamin Walker, Ben Whishaw, who was recently, most people would know him from Skyfall. He plays the new Q, and he will be coming out in Bond 24 as well. But also Brendan Gleeson. Now, the one thing with the narration in the trailer, at first I thought it was Benjamin Walker. And then later on in the trailer, it sounded like Brendan Gleeson. I'm just wondering if it was both of them. If you guys could hear the difference or knew which one it was, you can definitely put a comment in the comment section there, because I'm not entirely sure. The first part did sound like Ben Walker, because it sounded just like his voice from Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. And that's the last I want to mention that movie. But just everything that I've seen from this film so far, all the pictures that came out beforehand, I mean, even Ron Howard tweeting out. If you don't follow Ron Howard on Twitter, you definitely should, because he loves sharing stuff from his films. Like he was sharing little images from his editing bay several weeks ago. So it's just really cool to get that little bit of behind the scenes notion on the film. But I'm really intrigued by this movie. I think this is going to have an epic scale. It's going to be a really great character study. Beautiful to look at. I think it has all the elements there to make a really great film. And I can't wait for it. Again, it's going to open up on March 15th, 2015. If you guys haven't checked out the trailer, again, go in the link in the description below. You can watch it there. But until next time, I will definitely update you guys on here. Now we're getting into our user submitted questions segment of the show. Now, before I get into the other 2 questions, there was one quick question that was asked by Wicket Tony Gaming, who asked, is there any new information on Boondock Saints 3? And I actually did, on the video that you asked that question for, I already responded to your question on the comment section, but just in case you didn't get that, about a week before I did the video that you asked this question on, I actually talked a good length about Boondock Saints 3. There was some new information that did come out about the movie. I think it was about Troy Duffy, the director, had come out and made some mentions about the film and things like that. So if you wanted to go ahead and check out that video, I've put a link in the description of this video below, so you can go ahead and click that and watch that segment. I believe it's the second story that I talked about. But you'll be able to find that once you go in and click the video. So I hope that answers all the questions that you had about the film, because so far that's all that we have coming out as of yet. But I mean, if the movie does start to gain some traction, which I mean, Norman Reedus right now is probably the most likely person to get some traction going on the film if he really did want it. After obviously the success of The Walking Dead, his star has risen significantly, so he could definitely get it moving. It's just whether or not it's actually going to get moving. But I hope that answers your questions on that episode. So definitely check the description of this video below for the link to that episode. So the next question comes to us from Chris MC, and he asks, if Marvel got Spider-Man in their cinematic universe, then I see this could be in the first step in Marvel getting Spider-Man back. But that could also hurt Sony too, in my opinion. I'm sorry if I'm butchering the question. However, I wonder how Marvel could get the rights back to Fantastic Four and X-Men. I'm not really sure how that even works. So, okay. This is just based on my understanding. I obviously don't work for Fox or for Marvel or for Sony for that matter. So this is just from my understanding of everything. But back in the 90s, when Marvel was having a lot of financial trouble and they were about to claim bankruptcy, they sold off the rights to all their high-profile comic book lines. The main ones that they still haven't gotten back are Fantastic Four, X-Men, and Spider-Man. Now, Fantastic Four and X-Men are owned by Fox, and Spider-Man is owned by Sony. And The way that it works for the majority of companies out there, this is generally the regular deal that they will strike if they sell off the rights. You have X amount of years to produce a new product. It has to be in some stage of production. This is actually what happened with Daredevil. Fox also owned the rights to Daredevil. And I believe it was about 2 years ago now. It may have only been last year, but I believe it was 2 years ago, where they had the rights to, there was the rights to Punisher and there was the rights to Daredevil that were about to lapse. They were about to come back to Marvel. So what that meant was the companies had struck a deal. Most likely the average one is about 5 years. So every 5 years you have to be in active development of a new property. I even believe the caveat is you have to be filming within every 5 years in order to maintain the rights. So Joe Carnahan, the director of such movies as The A-Team, as the upcoming Stretch, he also did Narc and Smokin' Aces. He came out with this really great take on a 70s style version of Daredevil, and he pitched it to Fox. He had like this little test reel that he gave to Fox, and they decided to pass on it. And it was about 3 weeks after that the rights reverted back. So if they had have given him the green light, they could have got an extension and had maybe like a 3-month window where they were able to get pre-production finished and actually start rolling on the cameras. But they didn't end up doing that. And so the rights reverted back to Marvel. So when it comes to X-Men or Fantastic Four, the companies themselves basically have to look at them and say, listen, we're either going to let the rights lapse and go back to Marvel, or what we're going to do, if they get to a point where they have, like, let's say, for instance, Fox was to come out and launch 4 new franchises in the next 2 years, or 5 new franchises, let's just say, and they all took off running. They were all smash hits. These were in-house productions. They didn't have to work with Marvel in any way, shape, or form. They didn't have to, have to worry about, okay, we want to tell this storyline, but damn, we can't because one of the main characters of that storyline is owned by this company. We need to change that out. Oh, that's not going to work now. Now we can't do that storyline. So in a situation where if they could get themselves out of that scenario, and these other franchises are now making more money than, say, X-Men or Fantastic Four, they could look at a situation where instead of letting the rights lapse and just going back to Marvel, they could say, you know what? X-Men is one of our most profitable franchises. Fantastic Four, the reboot, took off running. Everybody loved it. But we want to focus on these other projects. So Marvel, here's our position. We will offer you, $3.2 billion offer. You pay us $3.2 billion, we'll give you Fantastic Four and X-Men back. Plus also, within 5 years, you need to pay us another X amount of dollars because the movie franchises would be so big. They could even do a cross promotion thing where, we'll say instead of it being 3.2 or 3.1 billion, we'll say we'll do 2 billion, but on every Marvel film from now until 2019 or 2022, you have to promote a 20th Century Fox film in front of your movie. They could do something like that. And that way, Fox is now getting a gain out of this. They're actually getting money out of it instead of just letting the rights lapse. Now, I don't think that would ever happen. Ever. These companies, like X-Men, for instance, make so much money that they could almost just make a Fantastic Four movie, have it bomb, and then 4 years later just put out a new movie. Because you look at, and I think with Fantastic Four, I think that's a 10-year one. Because we look at Fantastic Four and how the last movie came out in 2007, the new one's coming out in 2015. I think they had to get it out by 2017 or else they would have lost the rights completely. So there are always different caveats to different contracts and deals. But as it stands right now, I don't think that Marvel could ever just one-up and get the rights back to Fantastic Four and X-Men. I don't think that will ever happen. What it will take, excuse me about this, I'm just having a little frog in my throat, but what it would take essentially would be Fox saying to Marvel, it's mutually beneficial to both of us if we do a movie together. So I don't think that we would ever see Marvel retain the full rights back to Fantastic Four and X-Men for their cinematic purposes, but there is always the possibility that we could see them share the same characters and say, listen, you know what? We have to adhere to the same cinematic universes that we've created, but you can go over here and you can use these characters. It would be a logistical nightmare for that to happen, but there is always the potential possibility for that. I mean, it's just kind of all up in the air. It's whether or not the studios want to work together. I just don't see it ever happening, at least happening in the way that we would all want it to, based on what we've seen the comics capable wise. I don't think we're ever going to see that, which is unfortunate. But we could always see the possibility of some of these characters sharing the screen. I mean, like you said in one of your other comments, you said that, Hugh Jackman has always said that recently, at least in the last couple of years, he's wanted to be in an Avengers movie. He's wanted to go toe to toe with Iron Man, and he wants to kick his ass. So the actors are definitely down for it. And I mean, who wouldn't be? That would be an incredible event film to be involved in. I don't think, though, that this could happen. But again, there's always the possibility that it could. We'll never know, really, until they actually come out and make the decision. I hope that it does. I really do. There's just so much logistical red tape to have to get around that I just don't see it ever really happening. But if it does, then we will definitely talk about it on here. I will almost devote an entire show to that, because that would be one of the most amazing things that has ever happened in the history of cinema. These competing companies working together for mutual benefit. I mean, that right there in itself is an oxymoron when you're dealing about Hollywood, but it's still great to wonder and think maybe this could happen. We never know. But anyway, if we do get more information about this, or this ends up actually being something possible in the future, you definitely bet that we'll be talking about it on here. And the last question that we have to talk about today comes to us from Davin Orvin, who asks, it seems that Secret Wars is possible because Kevin Feige and Avi Arad are executive producing Fantastic Four with Fox via IMDb. Sony's struggles would make sense if they play ball too. This ensures everyone's longevity and puts the squeeze on DC, and that could be a big reason for Robert Downey Jr.'s return to contract deals. There also is potential for lots of closed-door deals happening. Is it plausible? Absolutely. I mean, this question was written just before the announcement of Robert Downey Jr. joining Captain America 3 and continuing on with unveiling the new Civil War storyline that we're going to see throughout Phase 3. So there are definitely a lot of closed-door deals going on, as evidenced by that. No one saw that coming. No one saw that coming. So the question, though, and I already responded back to Davin, and he actually responded back to that question, but with Kevin Feige and Avi Arad both producing Fantastic Four, Kevin Feige also was a producer on The Amazing Spider-Man. Now, Kevin Feige has been a producer in name only on certain other projects, but one other thing to look at on IMDb, and I'll actually just pull that up again here, because I did look up earlier his list of movies. So these are just some of the movies that he is potentially producing in the future. So, starting in 2016, so after Avengers, Age of Ultron, and Ant-Man, there is the untitled Star Wars project. There's Doctor Strange, Captain America 3, and then in 2017, it's the untitled Marvel project, but then Fantastic Four 2 in 2017, then an untitled Vin Diesel project, Thor 3, then The Punisher, which hasn't even been hinted at yet, the Incredible Hulk TV series, The Hands of Shang-Chi, which it's probably just a one-off project, Submariner, Runaways, which has been rumored for a while, Jessica Jones, that will be the TV show that'll be on Netflix, Iron Man 4, which was just recently shot down, a Deathlock movie, and Black Widow. So out of all of these projects, the only ones that we've ever even heard being hinted at would be, out of the ones we already know that are coming, we know that there is going to be some other Vin Diesel project that he's involved with when it comes to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That was one of the reasons why he signed on. The Punisher, that came out of nowhere. The Incredible Hulk TV series, we already know that's dead. Like, that's just not happening. Submariner, Namor is a really tricky situation because Namor is still, his cinematic rights are still owned by Universal. So, I believe it's Universal. Pretty sure it's Universal, yeah. So, I mean, his cinematic rights are still owned by another company. And Kevin Feige's even come out and said that there's still a logistical concern with bringing that character to the big screen. But Runaways, we've heard potentially being listed as a film to come out in the future. Even Kevin Feige has said that he would like to see that project come out. Deathlock, that comes right out of nowhere. I don't see them potentially doing that until we know how they're going to handle that character on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., because he's an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. character. And I don't think that there's enough people watching that show and really invested in that show to start spinning off characters into their own movies from that TV series. I know that's one of the reasons why they did the show, is to get more characters introduced so that they could be brought into the films later on. But Deathlock to me seems like a very weird character to start on their own film. So a lot of these movies I don't think are really ever going to see the light of day. But more importantly than that, IMDb is never really to be trusted when it comes to what projects people are going to be doing in the future, because anybody can really go on here and add something. You can go, I mean, it's the same with the rating system. Anybody can go in and rate a movie about whatever they want, even if it's a movie that hasn't come out yet. So there are lots of possibilities when it comes to this. I mean, he was even a co-executive producer on the Punisher TV series that aired this year. I don't remember a Punisher TV series airing this year. So, I mean, that's just what I mean. I don't think that he is involved in any capacity outside of his name with Fantastic Four. That being said, Davin really does bring up a good point, because on his follow-up post, he talked about how this could all be, again, closed-door deals. This could all be happening behind the scenes. And he could actually be trying to work out a deal with Sony, with Fox, to get all of these characters together and to say, you know what, at one point, because Fantastic Four deals with alternate dimensions, alternate timelines, Doctor Strange deals with alternate dimensions, alternate timelines, you could potentially have all of these characters connect together in an alternate universe storyline. I know that's going way out there when it comes to comic book storylines. But Marvel is so smart with their approach to these films that they could very well say, okay, we're going to try this. We're going to dip our hand in here and see how audiences respond to that. Already look at the success of Guardians of the Galaxy. Marvel has already proven that they are a brand. They are the reason why people go and see the films. Not because they want to go and see Iron Man flying around. They want to go see because it's a Marvel film. So they could always wet the waters. You know, they could just dip their toe in and say, this is this idea, you know, and maybe even have in a throwaway shot, they could have somebody's walking through a hallway in an abandoned warehouse or something like that. And a character looks over on the wall and there are 3 slash marks in the wall. And that's all we would need. That is just a little teeny tiny hint tease that Wolverine could potentially be in this universe. And then snowball it out from there. There are always all these possibilities. Don't ever think that they're not there. It's just very, very, very unlikely that it would happen. 10 years from now is a different time. 10 years from now, we could be in a situation where these companies could be working together. I mean, hell, 10 years from now, Sony might not even be around. I mean, look at the trouble they're in. And if they go under, Marvel just gets Spider-Man back, and then they could say, we don't have any intention for Spider-Man just yet. But I do think that Spider-Man is definitely a big cog in their current wheel that they're trying to spin, especially with trying to adapt the Civil War storyline. I don't know how you really adapt that properly without Spider-Man. There's no other character that I can think of that is so large, so well known to everybody, while still being a character that withholds his identity, that does not give that out. And that's going to be a major point for Civil War when that does get adapted. We're going to be getting that over several films. And like I said earlier, I do think that Doctor Strange would take over the Reed Richards' role in that storyline if they were to try to properly adapt it. Because that's the only character that I can think of that would also have the ability to go over into an alternate dimension to create a prison for all of these characters that are not going to be unveiling their identities and say, you know what, you guys are too much trouble. We're going to take you and put you in this prison in another universe where you can't harm us anymore. So there are all these possibilities. Putting the squeeze on DC, I don't know, especially with DC's announcement that just came out the other day of their entire film slate coming out. Now, again, like I said on Wednesday's episode, that's all dependent on whether or not their first couple of films are massive successes. If they're not, you could definitely see that list changing. I could almost guarantee that list changing. Warner Brothers is not going to stick to a plan that's going to cost them money. If it's going to lose money, they're not going to stick to that plan just because they said they were going to. So this is so far out. We're so early on in this that there's so much speculation to be had. I personally feel that eventually we might get to a point, yes. But right now, I don't know. The only one that to me is kind of likely and maybe a possibility within the near future is Spider-Man, just because of the financial troubles that Sony is having. But outside of that, I don't see Fantastic Four or X-Men ever really coming back into the Marvel Cinematic Universe in any capacity, only because Kevin Feige is only a producer in name only on those projects. So, I mean, it all depends. It all depends on what comes out from here on out. But I hope this answers your question, Davin. If you do have any more to add on to this, or I didn't quite answer the part of the question that you wanted me to answer, did focus on it, whatever the case is, put a comment in the comment section and let me know. All right? But if we do get any more information about any of these projects, you can definitely bet that I will update you guys on here. Well, that'll about do it for us here on Coming Soon Movie News with Niklsun. Thank you so much for watching. You guys have been a great audience. Go ahead and click the subscribe button there in the bottom corner. You can get updates whenever we post a new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at Niklsun, Niklsun, for all of your movie updates. And you can also give us a like on our Facebook page at facebook.com/movie news with Niklsun. If you guys ever have a topic or a question you'd like to have discussed on the show, go ahead and put a comment in the comment section or email us at movienewswithniklsun@gmail.com, and they'll be answered on every Friday episode. And until next time, you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.